Welcome to the Neo Show, the podcast at the edge of AI and the future of the internet. Brought to you by Neo, the first safe AI native browser built to work with you, not against you. Here we uncover untold stories, explore bold ideas, and share insights from the leaders shaping tomorrow. Today, we're stepping into a new story that's just beginning: the AI browser war. To help us unpack what this new browser war really means, we're joined by two longtime friends and active voices on the front lines of AI. Guru Chahal, author of The AI Browser War, and Howie Xu, founder of Neo Browser, the AI native browser that's redefining how users navigate, discover, and create on the web. Together, Howie and Guru will share insights on AI, bold ideas for the future of browsing, and the vision driving the next era of the internet.
All right, gentlemen, welcome to the show. It's my pleasure to host today's conversation about the next browser war with Guru Chahal, the partner at Lightspeed, as well as Howie Xu, Chief AI and Innovation Officer at Jane. So I know you guys have been knowing each other for 2 decades, although I guess you guys like each other a lot, but sometimes
Depending on when you ask the question.
Exactly. Depends on the question.
Right, and I know you guys do not agree with each other sometimes for some topics, like today, the AI browser topic. So we're going to spend the next hour trying to cover as many questions as we could to dive in this topic to offer different perspectives. So let's get started. First question, help us to define what is an AI browser. Guru, why don't you start first?
First of all, thanks for having us. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Howie and I never have not interesting conversations, so I'm really looking forward to this. Just to give you some background, I'm a partner here at Lightspeed. We're in our beautiful courtyard. We're about a $35 billion assets under management. We're a global firm, and we've been in existence for over 25 years, largely focused in our early years on enterprise investing. So that's browsers all the way down to silicon systems, all the picks and shovels businesses.
Large language models.
Now large language models, and it's a very strong practice there. But taking a step back, we invest across sectors, so consumer, fintech, et cetera, and across stages, so early as well as late. So that's a context. I specifically focus on enterprise investing, typically at the very early stages in seed or Series A's. And my focus here tend to be anything that you would define as infrastructure below the application. Now, that could be browsers. It could be all the way down to foundation models. It could be enablement layers in cybersecurity and observability, which I'm sure are part of the reasons why we'll discuss this, all the way going down to silicon. And now to your question around why is this even an interesting topic, I think it goes back to a very simple premise. Over the last 20 years, actually more than that, more than 25 years, systematically the system of engagement for a human or a user with computing has moved away from the operating system into the browser. So everything that was relevant at the operating system layer is now also relevant at the browser layer. We used to use operating systems primarily as a mechanism for security, observability, gathering data, running applications. All of that now happens inside the browser. And so my going in thesis becomes the primary mechanism for AI to interact with tools that were designed for humans is also going to be the browser. That then becomes an interesting choke point where you collect data, where you do automation, where you secure AI to systems interactions, and so on. So that's the framing that we use. We're already investors in this space. As I was sharing with Howie earlier, a few years ago, we saw some incredible teams building enterprise browsers. So a version of the browser that, say, a Lightspeed would feel comfortable running, because our IT team and our security teams can then control what can and cannot be done inside the browser. So we invested in a company called Talon, which was then acquired by Palo Alto Networks, and we were the lead investors there. And we saw how quickly that entire market developed into a very large enterprise browser market today. And I think the thing we are going to debate today is whether AI becomes another reason for a net new class of browsers to emerge and become a large market. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think when the Talon acquisition happened, AI wasn't the reason.
That's right. It was cybersecurity.
There were other reasons that happens, but that's an interesting thing still is we haven't seen acquisition of browser technology for a long time. Suddenly, browser is interesting technology. Now, fast forward another year or two, browser is even more important. You wrote up this article. I was asking you just a few minutes ago, why did you? Because you and I know each other for so long. We discussed so many things. But we never discussed a browser in last 20 years. And then when I saw this article from Guru, I was like, what is interesting in browser? Now you explained it, right? Your initial interest in browser was this enterprise browser. It makes a lot of sense. But now you are interested in AI browser. Why are you interested in AI browser?
So it comes from sort of two key realizations and a foundational belief. Our foundational belief here at Lightspeed is that foundational models and AI in general represent a brand new class of capabilities that bring cognitive labor, make cognitive labor accessible to technology. So for the first time, ever since we've been in technology, machines can process language that is semi-structured, understand language, work with it, almost like a human would. So then the question becomes, okay, so what's the limit on this? One is, how smart could models get? We believe we're barely scratching the surface and models will continue to get better. We're one of the largest investors in companies like Anthropic, as an example. So that's our core foundational belief. Now, on top of that, then the question becomes, what holds it back? If these models get really intelligent, what holds you back? And essentially two things hold you back. A model's ability to absorb data and learn and do a better job in an enterprise setting. So observe and learn. And two, to actually take action, do something. So tool access. And there is one piece of technology that is the universal window to both observe what's happening and also take action. And that becomes a browser. Because almost, I suspect, Howie, before you came to this meeting or over the last many years, 95% of what you do on a laptop or a computer, you're doing through the browser. Which means if I was the browser, I would know exactly what you're doing and all the software you're interacting with, and I would be then presumably be able to interact with the software in that same way. Now, it's not 100%. We have desktop applications too. But if you're going to start somewhere, you would start at the browser. And I think that's why browsers were always very strategic real estate, which is why Google did the entire Chrome project. Think about it. The only reason they did Chrome was because they wanted to own search. But it was such a strategic real estate that in the age of AI, it is several orders of magnitude more important. And so that's why this renewed interest in browser, that it addresses those two key things. It enables you to gather data in a passive, continuous way, and it helps you to take action continuously as both a co-pilot, but also as an autonomous agent that can do work on your behalf.
The second question, actually, I was talking to Howie the other day. The news that Perplexity makes a long shot $34.5 billion US dollars offer for Chrome. What's your reaction when firstly reading the news?
So we're not investors in Perplexity, so we don't have any more data than the two of you do. But I will say one thing: there is zero downside to doing something, to saying something like that. Zero downside, right? So if it doesn't happen, you got great buzz. And at the end of the day, Perplexity is a B2C business. So anything that gets you more
Attention. Attention is all you need.
Attention is all you need. That is, I love it. So attention is all you need. So what's the downside? There is zero downside. And on the absolute sort of small probability upside, maybe there is a situation where Google is either forced or wants to divest Chrome, and in which case, why not make a play for it? And so I see that as a very clever, very smart thing that Perplexity put out there.
Look, I'm right now a chief AI officer at a public company. If not, I would have bid for that too. Why not? Guru may be supporting me to bid for that. Who knows? So I totally agree with Guru in that there's a zero downside. And if nothing else, the worst case is tremendous amount of the attention. I think the Google is going through a very interesting time, right? On the one hand, search business is under attack. For me personally, I don't use Google search nearly as much as I did it before. I can only see that's going to be more and more true for the mass population in the next 5-10 years. So that's a big threat to Google. But at the same time, they are also an AI provider. They also have a lot of smart engineers. So it's a very interesting time. But since today we are focusing on the browser war, obviously Chrome is what, 70% market share plus. It's the gorilla in this market. I personally see that browser war is real. 10 years from now, the default browser for 70% of people is not going to be Chrome, not even close. The reason is very simple. for the reason that Guru just mentioned. Today, if you think about Google's revenue, roughly $400 billion a year. And then search is a big part of that. A big part of that is actually sourced from Chrome. So anything they do with Chrome, it has tremendous impact to the revenue immediately. There are many different reports. The consensus is, roughly speaking, $80 billion of that $400 billion is directly from Chrome. So if I change the Chrome user interface, I'm changing $80 billion, right? How many companies with $80 billion revenue in the entire world? Let's think about it, right? So this is like a big deal. So I think they are going through this innovator's dilemma. It's not like they don't know what AI native browser should look like. They don't know the thesis that Guru was talking about. With AI, I should be able to help the user to do browsing or to access the digital universe much easier, but they cannot possibly do too much change. So this is from first principle point of view, that's pretty obvious. When I talk to people internal, it's also the same thing. They literally told me that my hands are tied. I cannot do a lot. I know what to do, my hands are tied. In a way, this is a very interesting that we are going through a period that the number one guy is gone. That's my assumption for the next 10 years. So then who's the next? Perplexity obviously has a Comet, there's a Deer. You wrote up these two browsers in your article, which I disagreed is you should have put my browser ahead of these two. With all the kidding aside, I think all of us are at the very beginning. Comet, Deer, Norton, Neo. This is, but let me just give a very brief introduction. I actually joined Gen Digital about a year ago as a Chief AI and Innovation Officer. And among many other things I do, I started this AI browser project a year ago. With pretty much, I don't want to repeat what you said. Everything you said is what we saw at Gen Digital. The browser needs AI component big time, not just, hey, there's a button, AI summarize this page. That's AI assist, right? I think the world needs an AI native browser. You have to start from scratch, rethink about, right? In the past, it's like a human, okay, I want to go to CNN, Fox News, I click a link. If browser give me that page faster, I'm going to use this browser. That's pretty much why Chrome even won over the Microsoft IE. At some point, the JavaScript ran much faster on Chrome. That's why Chrome disrupted IE. But these days, I think you still need that. But the way I interact with the digital universe shouldn't be like that. I know a link. The browser should know about me. The browser should bring the information to me even before I click the link. The browser should summarize or maybe even negotiate certain things or do whatever the task I wanted to do, right? It's not just agentic. The browser should be ahead of you rather than browser reacting to you. And it's very personalized. So there is so much you can do with that. So a year ago, we said, let's actually rethink about the browser. And then we started this project. And then along the way, obviously, Perplexity, Arc, right? These guys are probably thinking about the same line. And then the way I think of the browser today is very much like search 1997. I don't even think the future of the Google in this place is necessarily born or even there or maybe in garage. But I think the idea is there. Larry Page already started thinking about this, right? 97, 98, when he started at Google, this is where we are. As far as what's the business model, as far as what the product looks like exactly, I think it will take some time for us to learn and figure out. But there's no question that we would have a totally different browser. That the browser shouldn't be, I click a link, give me the content. That's nothing, right? The browser should be my personal assistant, giving me 10x productivity, helping me to do a lot of things 10x faster, right? How to do this. So that's kind of how we think about it. Norton Neo was introduced in May this year, and we believe that with our sort of the execution in terms of the bringing AI to the browser, the safety, privacy, we can talk more about it. I think consumers are going to love it and then going to have totally different experience.
How you said the number one guy will be gone. Like Google probably won't be the leader in AI browser. That's how you said. Do you agree, Guru?
I think the landscape is wide open. For the first time in 15 years, both of the major, call them strategic pieces of real estate that Google owns, one is search and the other one is browser. Those two most strategic pieces of real estate that they own. I think both are under threat. I think the opportunity exists, and it's up to us, to folks like Howie and others, to think through how do you not just do something evolutionary, slightly better, but revolutionary, right? You have to rethink the system of engagement. If your browser is only slightly faster, that was great for Chrome in the war with IE. It's not enough now, right? What is enough now is yet to be invented. It's a complete rethink of how that interaction of a human user with the World Wide Web happens, and what's the opportunity to rethink that portal through which we interact with the web. So I'm excited to see the innovation coming out in this. I'm really excited. I think for the first time, we're going to see something that is magical because that opportunity exists now. I think voice will be part of that, better security, more automation, easier discoverability. I think all of these things are up for grabs.
By the way, I don't know you had a chance to download and use it yet.
I'm looking forward to it. I just got your email. Thank you for that.
Okay, so neobrowser.ai, people who watch this show will get an activation code. I'd love to get your feedback. Maybe that's episode number 2 at some point.
That's excellent. You guys mentioned some AI browser products already, like Perplexity,
Comet,
Deer,
Deer,
and
Norton Neo.
right. The rumor says OpenAI is going to launch its AI browser too.
I will bet that over the next 2 to 3 years, we will see tremendous innovation and more browsers in this space. We will see startups, we will see large AI labs, we will see certainly perhaps even companies like Google reinventing either Chrome or a net new browser in different ways. We're going through this Darwinian sort of explosion of a complete change to how we interact with the world. And I think to some extent, even Claude on your desktop or ChatGPT on your desktop is competing with the browser. To your point, I couldn't agree more. You said, I'm using Google less and less. Man, my first stop is not Google for anything now. When I'm looking for information, I'm in a meeting, somebody says quantum computing. I was like, I don't know anything about quantum computing. I don't go to Google and say, please tell me about quantum computing. I literally go to Claude and say, give me a quick introduction to quantum computing. 5 seconds later, I've got the perfect sort of write-up. I go through it, and now I'm at least conversant in it. I think there's some fundamental changes happening. Browser is going to be a key part of that. I will not at all be surprised if OpenAI either develops their own or makes a play for Chrome. It will happen. I think we'll see tremendous innovation in this space.
While we have not heard the rumors that Anthropic is developing a browser, don't tell me no comment.
That I cannot comment on. We look, as you both know, we are huge fans of Anthropic for a very simple reason. It's the best team that is pushing the frontiers of intelligence, but in a way that is safe, secure, trustworthy, interpretable. And these are things that matter to folks like Howie and I because of our enterprise roots. And so we think there's just a tremendous future in applying intelligence and cognitive intelligence, especially in enterprise settings. For sure, Anthropic will continue to experiment with new ways in which you can connect their models and their intelligence to both the data that an enterprise needs and also the actions that these models need to take to automate. Could that be a browser? Sure, but that's up to Mike Krieger, who's the CPO, and his team.
Do you think the AI browser war will be the battleground for giants only, or startups also have an opportunity? Because we can see the LLM game is totally like big players game already.
100% startups it's a level playing field. It's a level playing field. And the reason for that is actually, interestingly, the fact that Chromium, which is the underlying engine inside Chrome, is open source. Maybe 15 years ago, I wouldn't have been so bold to say that a startup will just come out and write a browser from scratch. The reality is the internet is such a diverse place that supporting all the different types of things that you need to support to create a browser is a pretty tall task. But I'll give you the proof point for what makes me very bullish on new players emerging, not just the larger companies. Howie and I have a bit of a cybersecurity background as well. And about 5 or 6 years ago, a few founders decided there is an opportunity to build a brand new browser for enterprises that is secure. And you would have a blink reaction, say that people have Chrome or Safari or others, there's no way that's a real market. And the reality is we were lead investors in a company called Talon that got picked up extremely quickly by Palo Alto Networks and is now an extraordinarily large business inside Palo Alto Networks, which is a large cybersecurity company. There's another company called Island, which is also doing really well. And so there is an opportunity for startups. Both of these are startups. They built the stuff off Chromium. You can pick up Chromium as a startup engine, as your startup building block, and then rethink everything else about the user interface and the system of engagement, optimize for security, optimize for automation, optimize for AI in different ways. and build something new. So I think the field is wide open.
All right, Howie?
I would say it's only for small players. However, I agree with Guru that Google may have a different project outside of Chrome. That's to me, that's a small player within a giant. That's possible. I just cannot see the giants, this sort of the number one players, current number one applications is going to shift too much for the reason I just mentioned. I just don't see that possibility. I do see a possibility, another interesting project surfaced. But usually, how it goes in a big company, it's tough. That's for the typical. So I would say I might be biased, but I would say it's actually for people who doesn't have market share. It's actually time for them or me.
Great. And how will AI browsers disrupt the current way of advertisers? Because search engines like browsers are the main traffic entrance for a lot, like SEOs, rankings, display ads. So how will this new AI browser thing disrupt the money-making machine for Google and Meta?
I think you're asking the right question, but it's a narrow question. I would encourage you to take a step back and ask a bigger question. What is search in this brave new world that we are going in? So historically, all of us used search as a discovery mechanism for us as a human. You want to travel somewhere, you say Hawaii, great hotels, and then you would search. And you have to ask yourself 5 years from now, or some long arc of time, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, are you really doing that? Because are you really going to this bar and typing in Hawaii great hotels to see 10 blue links and one by one clicking through those and figuring out who else is reviewing this? And is that really going to be the system of engagement? I can tell you, my bet is zero chance. Zero chance 5 or 10 years from now, you're going to this small bar, whether from Google or Bing or some other search engine. I think that entire world gets completely disrupted, completely changed. Because what you will do is to a trusted agent or a browser that you trust and say, I'm thinking of going to Hawaii. What do you think? Here's some options. The search will happen, but it's getting pushed one layer down and is getting done by AI. And so I call
You
this
talk to your travel agent, which is the browser.
That's right.
About, hey, here's my plan. You figure out, maybe you need to do search. Maybe you need to talk to cloud or OpenAI, whatever, right? That's your job. My job is to talk to my travel agent.
That's right. Now, think about the repercussions of that. The entire search industry today, entire search industry is based on a very simple assumption that there's a somewhat impatient human who doesn't have perfect querying abilities, sitting there and wants an answer right away. And that's why I think, why do they only show 10 search links? That's because if you showed 40, I would be overwhelmed. If you showed only 3, I wouldn't quite trust you. So, somehow with enough experimentation, you decided 10 seems like the right number. And so the entire industry is focused on this act of me going to this one bar, typing in an imperfect search query, and then going through results one by one. That AI agents, that is not how. For instance, one of our companies, Exa AI, is building a search engine specifically for AI agents. Because AI agents, the way they search, the things they search for, and the kind of queries they can ingest back is vastly different from human. Human today does this. Great hotels in Hawaii, 10 links show up. I click on each one of those. Here's what I do, by the way. I open each tab. Now I've got 11 tabs in my browser. Then I go one by one each tab. I don't like any of these. Then I go next page and I click through and oh my God, it takes hours. What a frustrating thing. You know what an AI does? It doesn't care for 10 tabs. It's not going to go open 10 tabs and then go browse those hotels. It makes one query, says, give me 100 hotels and give me all the metadata associated with, and give me all the reviews, all in one shot. One shot, comes back, jam into the context window, ask 4 people, based on what you know about Guru, what are hotels you think I might like on these days? And by the way, don't even suggest something that's not available on those dates. And it shows me 3 things. I was like, you know what? I feel like going to this one right now. So the entire notion of how search happens changes. And that is the bigger threat to search. The threat to search is not just the browser moving from Chrome to Neo. The bigger threat to search is the fact that it's not a human searching anymore. I just don't believe that human-initiated search queries will be the dominant search 10 years from now. It is just not the case. It is AI that is doing that search and discovery. And so we are investing in teams that are making that world a reality. And so the browser becomes more of an interaction mechanism through which you're driving automation, you're having conversations, you're doing things that matter to you as a system of engagement for entertainment or work. Search as a function gets delegated to AI that does it, fetches the right piece of information for you in that moment.
I very much agree. Before you talk about monetization, business model, we first need to talk about what the future looks like.
Yep.
You just laid out the future. Chrome to Neo browser, that's just one part of the future. But also how the search is being done, which layer in the tech stack, I totally agree with you. But just one additional color to share about this business model. I would say we don't know what the business model is. In the sense that if you think about search, why Google even, why we even have a Google? That's because Google, when Larry Page, actually I heard this on a quiet podcast, there was a fascinating story. It was 1997, before Google started. Larry Page went to this company called Excite. It was one of the double-digit number of search companies. And Excite was doing pretty well. And then they tested My Search and then Google Search. And then their team is like, it felt strongly, Google Search is far better, far better. So the CEO, in the last meeting, CEO went to the room and said, hey, let me figure out, should I acquire the technology or whatever we wanted to do. The moment he saw like a Google search was far better and then people will, the first link is so relevant, he basically said, get out of the room. Why is that? Because of the business model. Because the Excite business model is about banner ads. So the longer people stay on that page, the better. So if the first blue link is actually the relevant one, my banner ads revenue is going to be shrinking, not increasing. So to me, like for us to thinking about, okay, ads revenue, this, and we're going through another major shift. So I would say whoever thinking about ads revenue the way it's being done today, which is enormous, is wrong. Now, the only guy who couldn't say that is Google, right? Google cannot say, I cannot, they have to, right? They have to report go to the Wall Street every quarter, right? $100 billion. Most of that is ads. So I would say Google is screwed for that reason. Now, of course, Google has a Gemini model, has a lot of other things, right? They may have a spin up new project. So I think the future is unclear from that point of view. But I would say to answer your question, one is what I totally agree with what Guru says. Think about what the future looks like. I think it's a different future. And the secondly, what is the business model for that new future rather than what's the business model in the current way of thinking of the ads?
There's a way to think about this. When you look at a particular market, are the products serving the business model, or is the business model serving the product? In the early days of development of a market, you come up with a great product, and then you attach a business model to it to serve the product, because you want to build more product, you want more people to use it. This is the early days of Google. And then you get to a point, at some point after tremendous success, you're stuck in that business model, and the product serves the business model. This is when you go from Google's search engine, tremendously successful, is now stuck with this business model. So instead of 3 or 4 banners on the right side, you start showing those results at the top of the search results. And then slowly you start making them look more and more like an actual search result. How many times do you do a search query nowadays on Google and you're like, is this a sponsored result or a real result? I have to pay attention to that little italics at the bottom, sponsored. I was like, nope, scrolling right past. But I doubt everyone is that careful, because they make it look like a search. And now you have a situation where the product is serving the business model. That's where the opportunity is. And that's why venture capital exists. Those founders that we are funding, they don't care for the business model. They want to build the absolute best product. We've both been founders. We didn't start our companies going, man, what's a business model I will do? No, we saw an opening in the market to create an amazing product. And then we bolted on a business model to that to serve that product in the right way. And I think that's the opportunity. The market is a natural way of the world. I don't blame Google or anyone else for that. It's their success that lands them in that place. And it is that the fact that you're stuck to your business model and the product is merely serving the business model now and not trying to be the best product it can be, that is the opportunity for founders. And we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that's great timing. As you said, I often click the first or second one in the Google page and then turn out to be something totally different.
Sometimes I joke about this
Even
on
the
a
competitor company will show up in because of the ranking.
There are times on my mobile, I can't even use Google anymore. If I use it, I have to go through one screen, and then a second screen, now I'm past the sponsored results to get to the actual search query. Why would I use that when I can just fire up Claude and say, here's my query, give me the answer?
That's because they have a product serving the business model.
That's right.
That's the reason.
That's exactly
That's
right.
an easy explanation.
Yeah.
What are some technology breakthroughs or advancement do we need in order to overcome the current barrier?
I'm 1 degree removed than Howie. So I'm actually curious what Howie has to say here too. And then I'm happy to share mine.
Yeah, so I think since I have been living and breathing in the browser revolution in the last 1 year, this is a topic dear to my heart, 24/7, right? So I think for the AI native browser, we are going through 3 different phases at this point. The first phase is pretty much chat and then search, right? The merge, or like why do I need a chat and when do I need a chat, when do I need a search? It doesn't make any sense for people to say, oh, go to Google for search and then this question. You need to give me a unified experience so that I have questions, I have something, go one place. That place will give me chat if needed, give me search if needed, right? Give me the direct navigation. If I want to go to my Bank of America account, I don't want to go to 10 Blue Links. I want to go to Bank of America, right? So the navigation, chat, search, the uniform experience needs to be there. I think for the AI native browser, Norton Neo, right? We already have gone to that phase, and I think many other browsers either realize that or about to get there, right? The search and the chat merge. So I would say this is a phase 1. The phase 2 and the phase 3, the timing is a little bit controversial. I'll give you my point of view, but I think the industry has a different point of view. That phase 2, in my opinion, is the browser. Now that the search and the chat needs to be merged, the browser needs to be a lot more proactive, a lot more personalized. It cannot be just I want to go to CNN or Fox News and then give me the link. Before I go there, there is something it's being done, maybe notification, maybe I'm reading this part of the news and of course I didn't pay attention to all the details. And then 2 days later, it will say, hey, Howie, you are interested in F1. By the way, there's an event of F1 that of the page you actually browsed either right now or just 2 days ago. And then do you want to be notified of such things, right? So there is a Superman sitting next to you almost, right? Browsing together with you. And then if it will it will help you to memorize things, it will help you to grab things, it will help you to go to 50 different websites if needed and summarize if needed, right? So I call it some personalized, proactive agent sitting next to you or Superman sitting next to you doing that. So that's what Neo browser is working on, delivering the value. The phase 3 is agentic. By agentic is you can do a lot more complex things. For instance, it's not just some simple form filling. I wanted to achieve some complex things, right? The agentic browser is like my assistant. I wanted to go to Hawaii. It will figure out not just the top places I wanted to go to, but give me very detailed potential booking of this, a lot of more things, right? I view that the merge of the chat and the search as a phase 1, phase 2 is the personalized, the proactive browser, and then phase 3 is agentic. I think in the industry, there are people who actually believe we need to jump to the agentic browser right away. I don't disagree. In fact, we do phase 2 and phase 3 at the same time. I don't believe the technology is quite ready for full-blown agentic browser. For instance, if I want to buy an iPhone cover on Amazon, right? I wouldn't trust the agentic browser to do that yet because it may work 8 out of 10 times or 9 out of the 10 times. But what if the 1 out of the 10 times it doesn't give me an iPhone cover, it gives me an iPhone? That's not what I want. So I wouldn't trust the AI nearly as much yet. But if we are able to get to that phase 3, that's not just the search, navigation, chat merge, but also search, chat, and the action merge. I feel like the technology is not quite here in terms of the action. Simple action, sure, that's what we are trying to do as well. So we are going through, for the Neo browser, we already finished the phase 1, right? We feel like we are leading the rest of the pack. We are leading the rest of the pack in terms of the moving forward on the personalized browser and then the proactive browser. And then Guru is going to try out and say, wow, I didn't realize it can be this personalized shortly. And I'm going to coach you once you said that. But in all seriousness, there's a lot of things to be done, by the way. It's not like just integrating whether Anthropic and OpenAI, it's done. You have to think much harder in terms of what's the user experience, right? Because at the end of the day, I might be proactive, but it could be very annoying. So how to balance the user experience, it's a very tough problem. So we are going through that phase 2. agentic stuff, we are also delivering some agentic stuff, but I view that as potentially a year, maybe 18 months, maybe longer. We are going to gradually making some progress. That's how I see the technology on the browser side.
Yeah, I like this framing. I like this framing of phase by phase, of starting in a way that consumers can very easily adapt to the new model, then the depersonalization, then the action and orientation. It almost, in the way you were describing it, Howie, somebody struck me like this might be the time that the browser actually becomes the AI operating system. That might be the larger opportunity in the fullness of time, that the browser is no longer this little window through which we access information and take actions on the internet or applications, but truly an operating system for our lives where it is agentic, it is proactive, and of course, it is a true partner in terms of combining chat and search and brainstorming with it. And I think that's a world I'm excited in. I would take the other side of that agentic bet, though. I think some of the stuff that Anthropic and others are working on is just so remarkable. I think we're all going to be surprised by how quickly automation comes into our lives, and that's exciting.
Cool. Let's talk more, right? After this one, leveraging some of the new stuff from Anthropic on the agentic stuff.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a big fan of agentic stuff. I'm not saying that when I say a year, 18 months from now, the high accuracy, right, the agentic sort of the outcome. But otherwise, agentic is here and now. I'm fascinated about
what do you think about voice, Howie? Does it have a renewed place here? It's gotten so good, like sometimes I'm not even typing, I'm just...
Yeah, that's very interesting. So when we started working on Neo, and then the first version we shipped, the alpha version last about December, we already had a voice in it. I would say it's interesting. There's not as much adoption of the voice initially, but it's unclear because the voice is the wrong feature or human just need to adapt to it. Because for mobile, I think people are more used to doing the voice. For the desktop, I don't think people are, okay, I'm talking to a laptop. It's less natural, but who knows? It may be a matter of time, or maybe, I think there are two different things here. One is the voice technology mature enough, natural, cheap enough, low latency enough. I would say we have, as an industry, has made a tremendous impact, tremendous improvement in the last 12 months. So I would say the excuse is no longer the technology readiness. So that's number one, the technology readiness. And the second thing is the technology suitable for that use case scenario, right? I would say we haven't seen that yet. I was a big fan of the adopting voice into the browser. Working with my team, we got this feature in. But I was also told that no one used that feature. So we'll see.
I think your instinct is right, by the way, that voice is finicky. 95% accuracy is not enough. Like, it has to deeply understand what I'm saying with my accent, with the kind of words I use. If I'm a specialist in some domain in finance, or I'm a doctor, it needs to understand those terms. It needs to be real time. I need to be able to see very quickly what it's typing. So there is a very high bar. My instinct is we're very close. We're very close. There's also a very high bar for the user experience, because if I'm talking, if it waits for all of that to finish and then show me the text, that's not going to work. I need to see it getting typed out right away to get confidence that it's doing what. So I think the technical bar is very high, but we're almost there. It feels
almost
high,
there.
almost there. And then you're absolutely right on the other side too. Is it suitable for that use case? And I think there will be a few set of use cases where it will become habit forming very quickly. That's my instinct. But we'll see. I'd be curious if you turn that back on and invest more in it, how that goes. Maybe that's a follow-on conversation.
And then you are going to be the user of our voice?
100%.
Okay, 100%. I get it.
The first beta user for sure. And how about visual? I think visual probably is the next stage for browsers, because visual has like tons of other information that probably voice or language couldn't describe. Yeah, but we're still probably a little bit too early nowadays as we're waiting for the AI hardware.
I think I'm very excited about new visual interaction models that AI enables. I do think it's a bit early right now, but the technology is getting there. To give you an example, today the entire browser engagement model is I go to a website and a pre-laid out website with its images and text and everything shows up. Maybe there's an opportunity based on what AI knows my intent is, it generates that entire output. Could be a video, could be an image, could be text. Everything is generated just for me in that moment. And visuals are a huge part of that, including how it's presented. Maybe it's a mind map of some sort because that's what I like. Maybe it's mostly images because AI has learned that for me, I'm a visual thinker and I like to see images. Maybe it's mostly text because AI has learned that I don't like images. I'd actually like to read through stuff as quickly as possible. So I do think the ability to generate images and videos is tremendously exciting, but it is right now expensive, unpredictable. The same prompt will get you two very different images every time, and fairly high latency. I know teams that are working on all three of those, making it more predictable, making it very low latency to real-time video generation. We are beginning to see some demos, especially in gaming, of infinite games. Right? As you're playing, it's generating the world. It just never finishes. So it is generating the world in real time faster than wall clock time. And so you'll never see the end of that video. So we're beginning to see that. That's exciting. It's a bit low resolution right now, but it's beginning to get there. And then the cost has to drop. I think as that happens, I'm excited. It's not a 6-month thing, it feels like, but it is there out there.
So this time, Guru talking about the engineering side of things, right? The cost, the latency, the technology maturity part. I'm going to talk about the vision side. This is where I see that 10 years from now, maybe less than 10 years, not 2 years, some years from now, when we look back, the way we use browser is totally unbelievably wrong. Why do I say that, right? Today, you go to whether, again, Fox News or CNN, whatever your favorite news website is, you go there, you see the text, you see the video that they give to you, right? But guess what? Why do I consume text just because CNN, Fox News give to me, right? It should be me, right? I need a video when I want to watch video. I need the text when I want to read the text. The source of the data is, I wouldn't say irrelevant, shouldn't be static, right? So we do need to see the browser that's multimodality, meaning that it's a layer in between, right? I have a need, okay, I'm going to watch news, I'm going to watch video, right? Then whether the CNN, Fox News, everything, it doesn't matter. If it's a text, it will be converted into video for me. But at some time, I'm driving and on the passenger side seat, and then I just want to scroll some. Even if I go to YouTube, right, I just want to see the summary of the text rather than video, right, because it's the wrong environment for me to do it, things like that. So I would say multimodality is a different way. It's going to allow us to unlock the value of me as a consumer, consume information in a more appropriate, in a more efficient way, instead of me being locked into CNN give me this piece of things in text, give me this in audio, I have to stuck with that. I don't have to be stuck with it.
What's the most exciting demo I've seen there? I'm sure you've played around with this product too. It's a product called Notebook LM from Google. It was so amazing, right? We all read papers or blogs or press releases. You take that same paper, you feed it to Notebook LM while you're driving. It appears at a podcast. Really well done product. Really well done product. Now imagine a next iteration of that where it discovers, you know what, Guru, instead of a podcast, prefers to watch a YouTube video of this thing as a talking head. Now you've got two avatars in a freshly created video just for you that are discussing that technical paper and going with each other. We're going into a brave new world that's going to be really exciting. The mode or the modality in which you consume information will be decided in a personalized way in real time. If in this moment I want to consume that information as text, it'll appear as text. As a podcast or audio, it'll appear as podcast or audio. If a video, it'll appear as a video. That's the world we're headed in, and that's pretty exciting. I think a lot of opportunities, especially in consumer land, related to that.
So the browser war is real.
It is real. And we have 10 minutes. Let's talk about security. I know the AI browsers offer convenience and a whole new future as we talked about, but they could also centralize user data collection in ways that could raise privacy concerns for sure. So how risky is that from both governance as well as the trust perspective? Maybe Howie go first?
Yeah, I can go first because this is a topic that I see both sides of the coin, right? On the one hand, a lot of time people want convenience, just to ship anything and everything to your, whether the model provider or whoever, as long as I get the best answer, right? But then there are people who care about, oh, do I give sensitive information? Do you retain my prompts? Because my prompts is, for some people, they don't want other people to see about it, right? So to me, it's very important for the consumers to have the choice. So the analogy I would use is if you think about Messenger, right? There are Messenger do end-to-end encryption, and then the extreme version of that is probably Signal, right? People have the peace of mind. Whatever I do with Signal, I get to see it. You get to see it if I do it. No one in the middle, right? That's great. And then there are other messengers. There's a visibility by people in the middle, right? So there's a wider spectrum. Our design, I'm not saying that everyone needs that, but at least from Neo point of view, not a Neo point of view, we wanted to give a browser that's almost like Signal of the browser, so that you have the confidence that as long as that's your choice, that's your configuration, that's your setting, the prompt saves on your local device only. It doesn't save on the my server or whoever's server. One may argue cloud-based shouldn't be a big deal anymore, but guess what? Certain people really care about it, right? So I would say for people care about privacy, for people care about security, that's why a lot of people came to Norton Neo because of that reason, because Norton carries the security, the peace of mind for them, and also our design. But I would also say that I'm pretty sure there are people who would tell me that I don't care about any of that. All I care is doing some fancy agentic workflow. As long as I get that thing done, sure, there will be those kind of the scenarios too. What do you think?
There's a few words that are all interrelated here, a few concepts. Security, privacy, trust, because privacy and trust, if I trust you, I don't need to be very private. If I don't trust you, I need to be very private. And then finally, alignment. Are we aligned in our worldview? When I say something, share something with you, do you treat it with the same way I would treat it? So you treat others like you would treat yourself, kind of. So is there alignment? Is there trust? Is there security? And then is there privacy? Because privacy in of itself doesn't mean anything. Obviously, you share everything with your spouse, but you don't share much with a stranger. That's all related to trust. And so when we think about these four things, our core belief is every layer in the technology stack needs to think of these primitives and give the user as much control, give the upper layer as much control as possible. Howie's team is doing this with the end user. So when we use it, we can decide how much do we want to trust, how much privacy we need to dial. I think most consumer applications will have to offer that choice, because this technology, unlike preceding technologies, is extremely powerful, but needs access to your life and your information to be even more powerful. So the delta between not giving it any information and giving it information, its effectiveness is actually quite different. And so I think the temptation for giving it more information is going to be very high. And so I think it will be very difficult for application providers, browser builders, to de facto assume where to set that dial. I think what is more important is to recommend certain settings and give that dial. I'll give you another example. Deeper in that layer, there's probably an integration with Anthropic that Neo has. And so we love Anthropic's vision here because, again, that focus on trust, safety, security, alignment is extraordinarily important, because as an application builder, you can provide all those controls, but at the end, if the intelligence doesn't really respect those directives, then you've got a bigger problem on your hands. So
along this line, do you see that in the future, the consumers will, own some, I don't know, the digital vault, and I say, hey, this part I give to browser, this part I give to that AI agent, because I'm going to have 6 agents or 60 agents I'm dealing with anyways. I'm going to keep the memory, the data in one place. I can centrally manage it, and depending on which agent. Do you see that, or how do you think about it? I'm curious, because you see so many different applications. That's why I'm asking this question.
I think there's a few cybersecurity nerds like Howie and I who are extremely careful with managing information and which applications get what application. But my observation is the average consumer, the cognitive burden of parceling information into these sandboxes and then giving individual sandboxes to individual applications, the cognitive burden is too much for the average consumer. I can tell you, people outside Silicon Valley or people outside the cyber ecosystem, when you log into something with Google and then Google says, this thing will have access to these 7 Google services, are you okay with it? The number of people who read that and take action on that is 0. People are just like, yes, I just want to use this application. So the answer is, for a small subset of people, yes, this ability to enclave information will be important. And a lot of those use cases will be economically valuable, because if you're working at the NSA, obviously it's very valuable, so you might be able to build a business around it. But I do not see a world in which individual consumers, uninformed, masses, billions of customers out there, will be able to parcel this information in the right way. We can barely do that in our personal lives. It's just so difficult to remember, what did I tell my spouse, and what did I tell my kid, and what did I tell my cousin? It's just hard. The cognitive burden is too much. Now, if AI can help us with that, could be interesting.
I think consumers, when it comes to privacy, security stuff, the consumers do not like the cognitive friction, right?
Yep.
And also they do not pay for it. When it's
Yeah,
free
there you go.
and frictionless, they will say privacy.
Yeah.
But as long as one of the two things, or maybe both, they say, I don't know.
One of the privacy-focused search engines would have been the dominant search engine on the planet and not Google if consumers really, truly walk the walk. People like to talk about privacy, but at the end of the day, they want to just do what they want to do. It needs to be frictionless. They don't want to pay for it if it's free. If you can incorporate privacy into it, great. If you can't, most consumers, in my experience, don't care.
Wow.
They don't care.
Hey, another question. So consumers do not want to pay for anything in the past, right? Gmail or anything, right? But now they pay $20 a month for Anthropic or OpenAI. Do you see that kind of the behavior? It's a shift of behavior. What do you see?
I think actually going back to a previous discussion, I think the long-term business models are still to be discovered here. I think the initial paying $20 a month, $5 a month, $100 a month, depending on the utility you get, it makes a lot of sense. I think it provides very high signal back to these companies. It also pays for the very high cost of inference in some cases. And the thing I love about that is it could, historically, even we, technically relatively forward-leaning people, we didn't spend $20 a month on 5, 6, 7 different applications. Now we do. And the thing I love about that is that's the value we're getting out of AI is so high that we finally broke out of that habit and started paying. Imagine, like in 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years.
What did you pay for it?
But
I didn't pay for anything.
Never paid for anything. And then starting a year or two ago, we were like, oh my God, like I can't live without this stuff. Swipe a credit card and go for it. So that's amazing. Long term, is that the business model? Unclear. I think we'll have a mixture of everything. The winning business model is still to be discovered. Could be, hey, we provide you the most secure and private browser. Could be, and so you should pay for it. Could be ads, could be something else. So that's, I think, unclear.
We're running out of time. I do have one last question. So what are the most exciting startup opportunities for the next 5 to 10 years as we watch this AI browser war starts?
So obviously, it goes without saying that AI is so foundational and such an amazing building block that nearly every part of the technology market and beyond will present great opportunities. So I won't rule out anything. Having said that, some of the most interesting opportunities and a great test for founders is, could this be built 3 years ago? It's a very simple question, but are you doing something that could have been done 3 years ago? You're just doing it slightly better. Or are you doing something that 3 years ago was just economically or from a technical reason just not possible? 3 years ago, could you build technology, or 4 years ago, could you build technology that could go through all the PDFs that a company publishes in their financial disclosures and give you a summary of those? Practically impossible. Today, super easy. Build against that. So that's a test I use. I'm pretty excited by businesses that 3 or 4 years ago were simply not feasible, either economically or technically. It's a very clear why now. So I enjoy that, but I'm curious, Howie, how you view that.
Going back to one of the points you made earlier, right? Browser is not just the browser, it's going to be the AI operating system, right? So from my point of view, I have bias. Neo is going to take over Chrome completely. At that point, this is the future of the operating system. I'm going to work with 60 million applications working with my browser. So there are tons of startup opportunity hosting on Neo. That's what I see for the next 10 years.
Indeed. Actually, that's a great point. You are pushing the frontiers of what a browser can be. And those frontiers then enable a new class of applications on top, in the same way that the incorporation of JavaScript inside a browser led to Ajax and Gmail and all kinds of fun stuff that was built on top. Actually, I wasn't thinking about that, but this is a great point. The innovations at the browser level in of themselves might offer a new class of applications to emerge.
Yeah. And all the agents working with my browser is the lead generation for Lightspeed.
There you go.
So 50% of the leads will be hosted on my browser anyways.
I'm definitely subscribing and paying for this browser then.
Okay, here you go.
Sounds exciting. All right, gentlemen, that's all my questions. Do you have anything else to add?
I still have the question about why we don't hear about from Anthropic on the.
I only wish the NDAs were any less tighter. All I can tell you is it is an incredible company, and I wish I could share more. I have never worked with a sharper, more thoughtful bunch of people. It's just an incredible team. And as you and I, we've had long careers. At this point in our careers, it's about working with incredible people who push our own sort of point of view of the world, our own thinking. And I couldn't be more privileged to work with that team. So stay tuned is all I would say. But anyway, this was great, Howie.
Yes.
I'm really glad you suggested it. And thank you for moderating. This was amazing.
Thanks for tuning in to the Neo Show. If you enjoyed today's conversation and you're interested in trying Neo, sign up today at neobrowser.ai. And don't forget to subscribe, follow us on X, and join our Reddit and Discord community.